you dream, Elliot? You scraping so hard like you ain't never asked yourself this before. I said, do you want to be here right now? And I don't mean like here. I mean here in a cosmic sense, bro. Like, existence could be beautiful or it could be ugly. But that's on you.
I know which one's for me.
Dream. You gotta find out the future you're fighting for. Sometimes you gotta close your eyes and really envision that shit, bro. If you like it, then it's beautiful. If you don't, then you might as well fade the fuck out right now.
Hey guys, I'm Vulture Culture. In tonight's live stream, we're going to be answering the question, is the Korg DW-8000 from 1985 the ultimate sleeper synth for producers of deep house music in 2024? Now, you might be asking yourself, well, wait a second, if I'm making deep house music, what's wrong with using Serum? And the answer is, nothing's wrong with using Serum. There's also nothing wrong with choosing to only have missionary sex for the rest of your life. But some of us would prefer to have a couple of different flavors when it comes to the toolkit that we have. The next question you might have is, well, wait a second, aren't vintage synthesizers from the 80s, skull-crushingly expensive? And the answer is not always. In fact, I saw a Korg DW-8000 on Reverb today for less than $300 with shipping in the US of A. Hallelujah. So that link is in the description. I would be surprised if it survives this live stream before somebody buys it. Talk about an incredible synthesizer and a piece of history that you can get for just a little bit more than the cost of Serum. Serum's about $200, and you can get a piece of vintage history for $300. I think that's just insane. So tonight, what we're going to do is we'll start off by just checking out the DW-8000 and going through some of what it can do, what makes it special, all of its different hybrid architecture waveforms. So I've called this before sort of like the Novation Summit of the 80s. And then we'll actually make a little deep house track. The deep house track from the intro of this video or this live stream was all DW-8000, and Filterverse, which is my favorite plugin for doing any sort of filter automation, rhythmic stuff, as well as like delays and reverbs. We'll get into some of that too. But yes, and the DSS-1 is basically a DW-8000, but it can sample also. Giant synthesizer. Yes. Very, very cool. Nothing wrong with that DW-8000, Jim Abbey. Every key and function works. I never recommend synthesizers on this channel that are not in at least good condition. That is to say, it can have some battle scars. I like a good patina on a vintage synth, but as far as the functions, they're good to go. I'm also using a retroactive DW-8P programmer. These guys cost more than the synthesizer a lot of the time, but for me, it's worth it because of the hands-on control. But fret not if you don't want to spend that much money. I've put a link in the description to a video that I've done on how to program the DW-8000 without using a hardware controller, and it actually comes with a free plugin that lets you program this completely for free. And in some ways it's easier because it's very visual. So it's a really great controller thing. So with all of that out of the way, welcome to tonight's live stream. If this is your first time here, I'm Vulture Culture. I do this type of thing every Wednesday at 9. Please boop that subscribe button. Makes a big difference. And drop a comment if you enjoyed that jam at the beginning. It was a lot of fun. And if you know where the sample is from, there will be an emoji you'll know to put in the comment section. So with that, let's bust out these oscillators. So we've got 16 different oscillator wave shapes that we can pull up. And what we're going to do is just jump over here. And we have reset the synthesizer basically to having just a naked sawtooth. And this leads to one of the first things that makes owning a vintage synth so cool is, back in the 80s, there was just a lot of, they had limitations, and they also had to make the synth sound really good with those limitations. So in this case, these oscillators are not super high res. And so they're a little darker sounding than, say, a true analog synth. If we go all the way down here, if we listen to like the lowest note, you'll be able to hear this little whine, and that's actually the aliasing of the oscillator. Paul, welcome to the stream. How's it going? I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's a little whine at the top there, and it's audible on some of the other waveforms as well. But the sawtooth sounds great. I thought they were pretty snappy. We can just do a snappiness check here. Bring this all the way down. So that's about as fast as you can get. This is a parameter. You can see the value update here too, so you can program. You could take this number and add it into your DW-8000 while we're going on the stream and know exactly to get those same exact patches. And one thing that we can infer, not to get too nerdy too quickly, but while we're talking about envelope snappiness, is the DW-8000 has the exponential envelopes from the Poly 800 Mark II, right? Instead of the Poly 800, the Mark I, which has linear envelopes. And without getting too technical, in some ways, people say that the exponential ones are going to be snappier, and this one has it. I think it's pretty good. Attack. I would say it's pretty snappy. It's good enough for me, right? Also, we do have a 6-stage envelope. We won't really fuck around with that too much. If you want to know more about 6-stage envelopes, I've covered it a lot on this channel. Probably like the D50 video would be a good one to kind of cover that. But most people are going to be comfortable with just your standard, ADSR. So I'll sort of be talking like we're that. Doing that. So let's move on to wave number 2. So this is a square wave. And I actually use this wave to create that deep house bass line. We'll go over how to make a bunch of different bass line sounds too. That's kind of going to be the next step after we've just covered the oscillators and things. I actually have the manual here. Let me just pull it up real quick. And the manual here has all of the different names for the waveforms. So here we go on to oscillator 3. This is an acoustic piano waveform. Now, when you pull it up, it's not going to sound like a sample, because a sample would have a lot of waves stacked in it. This is just one wave. So the thing about this is this sounds really reedy on its own. It doesn't really sound like an acoustic piano. That's because we need to involve the filter. Yeah, sort of. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the most convincing piano sound, but there it is. Moving right along, we have wave number 4, which is an electric piano. So this would be good for like your E-piano type stuff. And you can hear, like, again, it's got everything you could want, and then you would filter it down. See, that's giving that DX70. We should definitely do SQ80 for Halloween. That would make so much sense. I'm so glad you said that, Twin Cities. That is a great recommendation. Wave number 5, we've got the hard electric piano. If you want more of like the Mark I Rhodes, right type sound. We do have a clavichord. Organ. Can I get some scum organs in the chat? I guess we don't really have that emoticon anymore. We've got a brass waveform, which is a more mid-rangey, horny, trumpety, trombone-y. You know, you can hear it doesn't have that high end or without. We could definitely throw some echo in too. But for right now, I just want to run through these oscillators. Saxophone's so good. So what's really cool, Ricky, welcome to the stream. How's it going, my friend? Is that we have all of these different sounds to start from, not just saw, square, and triangle. What a beautiful, buzzy sort of sound. Moving on to violin. So if we add some attack and decay to that, right? It starts getting into that neighborhood, right? Moving on, acoustic guitar. We gotta... And again, you want to use that filter to be able to get that sound right. We've got a distorted guitar for some voodoo people type riffs. We have a really good electric bass, which doesn't sound that awesome. There's actually a preset in here. It's really great sounding electric bass sound. Digital bass. This is like a very vowely sort of sound. I really would just use it like almost for like, I guess it's not that vowely up there, but sort of like that. Yeah, there is some mod where you can like add a bunch of waveforms to it. That's super cool. Probably my favorite non-standard waveform is the bell waveform. Really, really great. And then finally we have a sine wave. And you could use that to do triangle sounds or almost organy type stuff. So we'll go back to just a sawtooth wave. We have a mixer here. We've got noise. That's a thing. But we also have 2 oscillators. We have control over the detune. So all the way down, it's not... completely, yes, this is a wavetable synth. It's not a completely locked in tune synthesizer. So since like the D50 and the SQ80, when you have the oscillators and they aren't detuned at all, you get this kind of unnatural digital sound. But with the DW-8000, not so. It's got enough right there. No, they are wavetables. But they don't move. That's correct. They're a lot of times when people say wavetable, in the world of, Native Instruments, Massive, and Serum, people think wavetables always meant synths where you can morph a wavetable, but that isn't the case. Most wavetable synths from back in the day just had a table of waves that you could pick from. And in this case, you can't scan the waveforms or do anything like Sari said. But we do have these really incredible sounding oscillator waves. And just on its own, actually sounds really beefy. Now we could add some, gets a little unnatural, I guess, if the octaves are the same. But adding about 3/4 of detune or value of 5, man. Just beefy and monstrous. Now, we have a few things we could do to even lushen it up from there, right? We have a digital delay, which is also a chorus. So this is one of those counterintuitive things if you're not familiar with this, but a chorus is actually just a very short delay. Many of the choruses we associate that sound great are bucket brigade delay chips, meaning just that it's like a very short delay, modulated in time. And so we can take this sound, like a big bad, and go all the way from mono to just really huge. I like a value of around 10 or less. Once you go past that, it gets a little extreme. But it's really... How's it going, Synth Life? So we actually can create a flanger simply by increasing feedback. Now, if we take that back and I increase the time, you can hear that around here, we can have a pretty good delay, and then feedback obviously controls the number of repeats now. So that's another way that we can get that. We can control the mod depth and add a little. I don't really think the mod depth is useful unless you're using it more as a chorus. So again, if we take the feedback down and the time back, then we get that chorus sound. It doesn't do a phaser. All it can do is time-based effects. A phaser requires an all-pass filter, which we don't have. So we just have chorus, flanger, delay. If I increase the level, mod depth down, and the time and the feedback all the way, whoa, getting some weird grab there. Let's just see what the maximum is. And it's interesting because although it is a digital delay, it has a character to it, right? It doesn't sound, it sounds, I hate saying analog, but really there is something kind of, it's got a certain character to it, and it's really cool. And it's the fact that it's built into the synth. I mean, that was a big deal in 85. 87, the D50 would come along, and that would have chorus, reverb, delay. So to kind of beat the D50 to the chorus and delay thing, you can't have them both on at the same time because it's either chorus or delay. But really, this was one of the first synths, if not the first synth, to have built-in effects, which I think is super cool. Or built-in effects like a delay, right? Because, of course, the Junos and the Poly 6s of the world had a chorus. Jupiter 4 had a chorus. That was 78. The CS80, 78 also, 77, whatever it came out, had a chorus. But more than just a chorus, be able to go into sort of the wet territory. Yeah, 2 delay lines, right? This is just the one, I believe. We have an LFO called MG in Korg speak. They didn't change that till later. What are some other things we can do? We can tune the waveforms and intervals. So I'm going to bring this back and bring the time down. There we go. And we can tune oscillator 2 up to a 5th, and it's really kind of cool because you could tune to a 4th, a 3rd, and then it puts a little minus there for a minor 3rd. And that's sort of how you can get those sorts of techno-y sorts of ravey type sounds, which are definitely always around with house music, which is where we're going to go eventually with the stream. Ricky asks, is the DW-8P worth the money? For me, yes. And the reason is because even if this costs $600 and you can buy one of these today for $300, most of the time you see them hanging around $750. That seems to be. There are cheaper controller options for sure. I put a link in the description of this video to a video where I show you how to use a free controller programmer. So if you want to get this vintage synth, but you don't want to spend the extra money on the hardware programmer, I have a tutorial on how to program this bad boy with the free software, which is awesome. I mean, there's no reason not to do that. Aside from it's nice having the hands-on controls. Even at $750 plus, let's say $600, I haven't looked to see what these cost nowadays. Even at $1,350, this synth, I would consider it cheap for what it can do, how great it sounds, and what an incredible instrument and piece of history it is from the 5. $1,350 seems very reasonable, but I understand for some people that's a lot of money, especially when these things don't go for that much. Can you detune only one full octave? Well, we have octaves here, so right, and then the interval can go up an octave. And then it seems to be going into some crazy weird, like we're getting some hacker code. Wow, some like weird. So apparently you can go much further than that. Yeah, so into some really weird stuff. I've never seen that before, so really cool. I'm glad you pointed that out. We have a ramp generator, which we can use to control the pitch of the oscillators. And that can go to one or both, so we can make like a kick drum this way. You know, I don't know. I'd have to take some time to really tune that, but I just wanted to point that out. We could run it to both oscillators. good techno kick. Pretty dope, right? We're already sort of getting into bassline territory, right? That's almost more like gabber sort of sound. So we'll just not do that for the time, but I wanted to just highlight that that is a thing. So let's talk about some of the sounds you might want to make with this for deep house music. So let's bust apart some basic deep house bassline sounds. So the first is a sound that we have already. And we're going to just start with 2 sawtooth waves. And we're going to have a pretty good amount of detune. Bring the cutoff down. If we go too low, it's going to kill that bass. How's it going, Sean? But somewhere right around here, value of 24 on this particular synth, but you could be following along. You could be doing the exact same techniques with a VST like Serum. You could also use a free analog sounding VST like OBXD from Disco DSP, so you could search that. What are some other good options? Also, Full Bucket Music has an emulation of the DW-8000, which is free too. So that VST, you could follow along and do these same sounds with that. With every synthesizer, when you change from, one type of synth to another, the only caveat would be, hey, you're going to tune things slightly differently. But if you use your ears, you should be able to get basically the same sounds, right? So we're going super, super bassy. And if I go too high, we get a little into Reese territory, right? A little bit of like almost drum and bassy spooky, which can be cool, but for this sound, we're going to bring it down a little bit more. Yeah. Now, if we want that to be a little brighter at the top, we can use key tracking. So we'll go from, this is no key tracking, where it's cutting off the frequency at that same cutoff point, I'm guessing around 200. If we increase key tracking, you can hear we're going to have to compensate by increasing the cutoff as well. So if we want that sort of sound, in this case, I don't really need it, but that's an option. And really the trick to this is just increasing the envelope amount by a bit, not too much. And then let's talk about attack, decay, sustain, release. Now on this synth, we also have break, level, and slope, but don't worry about that. I would just leave those all the way. The trick with any sort of like 6-stage envelope or something like that on any synth is just to keep the middle 3 sliders where you want the sustain at, and things should work out fine. So you can kind of pretend you just have an ADSR, attack, decay. These 3 sliders stay together for the sustain and then the release, right? So we don't need any release, no attack. We haven't even put it into unison mode, actually. Unison mode's so monstrous, it's like almost unusable. And I would say tighter sound is probably good. So tighter decay, we love it tight. That's pretty good. We could increase the envelope amount a bit, maybe. But anything more than that, we're going to start kind of that's pretty much your standard analog synth bassline sound. And now we could do a couple of things with this. One is we could remove the detune. And we could bring the second oscillator up an octave. And this is going to take us kind of more into the SH-101 style bassline sound. which is, you know, definitely a synth poppy type thing. Yeah, definitely a Kraftwerky type sound. But really good for any sort of deep house sort of. You know, get some sort of grit, a little bit of punch. If you need more punch, we could bring the amp envelope down. And the way I like to do this is turn all the faders down and then isolate that decay. And kind of like highlight the transient of that sound and then just push the sustain up to where it sounds nice. So that's definitely a very usable and very aggressive, really punchy bassline sound. Now, another thing we could do is we could move these waveforms over to the square waves here, and that's going to give us a different kind of flavor. And I think this is more like that FM bass sound that you hear a lot. You can really accomplish that with just some square waves. And immediately you should know that that's sound, right? Yeah, definitely a little lately bass sort of thing, retro vibes for sure. And of course, I've got the chorus on this whole time because for this sort of thing, you know, it ain't fucking Serum. We do have a unison mode, but it's not going to. Ooh. We'll get back to the unison mode, but you know, it's not going to spread the voices through the stereo spectrum that way. So using the chorus is a good idea. Oh, that's like, I mean, what a good deep house bassline sound. No release. We could add just like a little if we want to, if we feel like it's getting too snappy. Man, that's great. That's pretty much your perfect house bassline sound. But we can do some stuff here. We can take it further. We can make it more exciting. So first off, we do have unison modes. Just check out the difference here when I take it from poly to unison 1. Oh, God. Just massive. So for me personally, that's almost like too much for something like deep house. That would almost, I mean, I don't even know what I would use it for. It's so, but this is the sound I'd probably go for. Now, let's say we do want to get into more of that, like really like their deep house growl type sound that we might want to do. So in that case, first off, I'm going to turn the delay into a delay. So I'm going to increase some time and feedback. There we go. Don't need too much feedback for now. So with that delay, now as we adjust sounds, we're going to get different feelings. So first off, we're going to increase the cutoff a bit. Let's go back to poly 1. Unison 1. Now, if I increase the resonance, we can get different flavors. Little bit's kind of nice. If we do too much, what's going to happen is we're going to lose the bass. Now, the KJM 2069 chips that are in the DW-8000, they are emulating the SSM. I learned that from Dubstation Zero in the chat. So SSM filters, Prophet 5, really great filter, does lose some bass as you crank the resonance. So you don't want to use too much on a bass sound. But a little bit sort of almost EQs it, you know, and pushes that high end forward. Now, the real trick here is to add a little bit of attack. increase the decay. Right, so just that little bit, maybe even bring the envelope down. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Really, really wonderful thing. What are some other things we could do? We could apply some modulation to the filter from the LFO or the modulation generator. So let's just increase that and see what happens. Right? So now we're kind of taking it into that either tech house, deep house with a little dub influence, right? Right? So that's pretty cool. What if we increase the rate though? We can actually increase it far enough that we get this really, really cool FM adjacent. You know, and to me, one of the major tricks to any big deep house track, I mean, deep house has evolved so much. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was DJing clubs, you know, deep house was a very formulaic thing. Nowadays, I feel like deep house has progressed. It's become much more interesting. You hear more different types of sounds. Sometimes you'll hear like a really dark sound adjacent to hard techno. And then you'll also hear some melodic stuff that's almost like progressive house sounding. So one of the big tips I would say with any synthesizer would be to find what in that synthesizer will give it character. And one of the advantages with vintage synths, especially, but hardware synths too, is you are limited. You know, you can't just throw an OTT on this thing and expect it to sound good. Well, I suppose you could in a DAW. But as far as just, you know, creating a core sound, a core vibe, I think there's something really cool to having a vintage synth, because I never would have come upon, like, what a cool dissonant. What a cool sound. And of course that was created out of us just fucking around live on the internet. If we take the resonance all the way, now we have some really cool, more, sound effecty type thing. I need to sample that and just have that around somewhere, because that's a great sort of techno percussion. Shape that with an envelope. Tighten that up. Are you kidding me? I mean, what cool sounds to get out of this instrument. And again, we're just talking about real basic bassline type stuff. Just adding that delay adds so much. What is causing that? Oh, the modulation amount. I mean, that's what we started with, just like a very basic sort of SH101-esque sound. So let's talk about Reese's for a bit. So that's defined usually by having sawtooth waves. and just a lot of detune. So again, if we increase the cutoff, give it a little bit of wow shape to it. We actually kind of have like almost something like a, if we increase the key tracking, we kind of have a horn up here. If we move the waveforms over to 8, you can hear the kind of the difference of this brassy type of, which is a really cool sort of difference. But you know, if you want just a more standard analog-y, add a little attack to that. I know we aren't talking about brass right now, but it actually, gorgeous sounding brass patch here. Okay, so Sean says turn down the feedback and use the modulation rate. Depth maybe 5 or 4. You can get a kind of Leslie sort of sound. Let's try that out. It's a little much at that level, but just a little of it. That's an interesting sort of seasick sort of sound. So, why I brought that up is because creating a brass patch is actually a great thing to now take down into the bass section. The biggest difference for me down here is just increasing the envelope amount, because up here it sounds really great with not a whole lot of filter modulation from the envelope. It's got an almost like, it's really adjacent to an Oberheim, isn't it? If we use a little bit of resonance, listen to how that just brightened the sound up. This synth sounds so expensive to me. I mean, it sounds so good. I can't believe there's one on Reverb for $300. Does anybody check to see if it's still there or if it's already sold? I don't almost ever. I always see them at around $750. A few years ago, they were selling more like $1,000 and up, you know, from there. I believe that's how I remember it anyways. Maybe I'm remembering it with a touch of some other stuff. So bringing this back down, we've got a cool sort of resound. Let's just increase the envelope. Remove the amp attack. How's it going, Tom? Don't really need the resonance, do we? Now, again, if we sort of mirror that decay attack thing and bring the sustain down a bit, we sort of get more of like a attack to it, and we can increase the delay as well. So this would sort of take us into this sort of more dark territory. Really, really fun. So that's a pretty sick bass line. We're gonna bring that up an octave. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is jump over into the DAW. So we have Reaper open here, and you can see what I've recorded before the live stream. So I'm going to pull out the sample I had. So let's see what we have here. Let's get rid of, I had a bass line from before. We'll get rid of that. I have a really cool pad I recorded. Let me just play this for you. Actually, let me pull that pad back just so you can hear what's going on from my previous recording. So that was the sound of that bass line with some filter verse, right? So we're going to just get rid of that though, because we're not using it. Here's this really great pad that I used some, I believe I was using the, what did I say had a vocal-like character to it? Oh, the digital bass sound had that vocally sort of character. So I used that to create this pad sound with some filter verse again. Really also cool, but we'll get rid of this too. It's not really fair to have it. We're going to start, I'm going to leave the drums as is just because of that. You can see I'm using some stuff from, what am I using? The Hanger drum kit from, who is it? Ghost Syndicate? Yeah. And some Vengeance stuff just for the transition. So we have this, this is, I think, just the song with only drums. Really, the only thing to talk about is like we've got a kind of a standard deep house, tech house kick. I'm adding some 2K because without that, here's how it sounds without any effects. With a boost of 2K and then adding some attack and pulling out some sustain, it sounds like this. Which just helps it, you know, survive the process of getting pushed into a limiter, right? Yeah, Vengeance samples are illegal in my state. So we've got some kicks and stuff. I mean, really not a whole kind of standard stuff, nothing out of the way. Lots of snare work here for the build-up, so you can see we've got, you know, quite a lot going on. Pretty standard stuff, right? Just stuff that you could do. Just took me a little bit of time to sequence all that out. So we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on recording a new track, monitor inputs. We're using channels 9 and 10. We're going to call this DW-8000 bass. There we go. And I'm going to, let's mute these guys and turn them off. Yes. And so we're just listening to that bass line. So what was I doing before? Let's do there we go. And I'm just going to record this in. I'll turn the display capture off so you can see me play, and we'll just record some of that in here. turn down that sample a bit just so that we don't have too much to mess around with here. And then what I'm going to do is we've got this little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and just turn that into a loop. You'll notice I don't bother with MIDI a lot of the time. So, of course, the synthesizer has MIDI. It's from 85. It's got MIDI in and out. That's how I'm controlling it, right? Can I get a scum cheers in the chat? I've been so excited about talking about the synthesizer and making music that I've forgot to be drinking. So for everybody who makes Wednesday nights here on YouTube the place to be, can I get a scum cheers in the chat? Thank you very much. Oh yeah. So now I've created this little loop here. And I'm going to just, I think I can just turn everything off by dragging down here. Yep. So now I've just got the bass line part. It's not played in perfect time, but that's okay. We're going to open up Filterverse. As I always say, one of my favorite plugins. They are not sponsoring this live stream, by the way, just in case anybody suspected. That's not the case. So the first thing is we're using the digital delay. So let's add some delay from Filterverse. We're just going to go to the flanger in Filterverse. We do have a phaser too. What do we do with the phaser? Jim Abbey's here. We'll do it with the phaser. So we're going to just bring the phaser down, and we're going to add a sequencer. Turn the tempo sync off and bring it down to somewhere between, you know, half, like 5.5 to 1, somewhere in there, and we'll modulate it. So now if we listen to it, it's going to modulate up and down. Which sounds a little weird until we make it left and right by pressing this button. And then we can bring the depth down. That's really the secret to this. And then kind of tune it. The secret to the subtleness is actually just the dry wet here. So without it, so it's just giving us a little bit more stereo content. That way it's not quite as mono. We don't need much because of the nature of the thing. Now, let's add a little bit more attitude to it. So I'm going to open up the bread and butter filter here. And this is a trick I like to use whenever I've recorded something in with my hands, because I'm not playing in perfect time. So I'm going to kind of use Filterverse as a way to cheat it to sound like I'm playing more in time than I am. I use that for the intro pretty heavily. So what I'm going to do is turn this into a pluck. Bring the cutoff down. So it's just, again, kind of trying to find that bass frequency we like. 48 seems low. We're going to turn this into a 2-pole filter. There we go. It's got plenty of range to it. I'm going to bring it to 1 resonance. It's an interesting thing that even though you don't see them on the resonance slider here, it just shows like 0, 2, 4. You actually can still hit 3 and 1 as targets, which I think is super cool. So now we need to modulate this filter, and we're going to pull up another sequencer. This time, though, we're going to change it into a different sort of thing. We're going to look for a pattern that is kind of like plucky, like this one. It doesn't really matter which one we use. I quite like using D0 here. It's going to be a very linear sort of shape, and we can hear how this sounds. So we can get sorts of different sounds. The bread and butter filter is like a ladder filter. So as we increase the resonance, we're going to lose some lower end. I love Funkervocht. Actually sounds really good sort of with this like talking sort of higher resonance thing. But if we didn't want to, we could just dial the resonance out and just use it sort of as a way to emphasize certain sounds. Actually, let's see. Maybe we want to go a little the other way. We want to add a little bit of sharpness to it. No, we can't do that. It's just going to go from there. So let's see if we could add some attack to it, but I don't think we can. And now the real trick is to add some drive. This is what's going to give us some attitude to this sound. The only thing about it is I do miss the sound of those delays that we've now lost. So we've sort of created that. We could also create a little bit more punch just by using that same sequencer, routing it to the volume. So it's just a little bit, goes a long way here. And then what we can do is open up. We want tempong here. So this is our ping pong style delay. So let's bring it down to like 20% or so and increase some feedback, and we'll hear what we got. What's up, Adapt? How you doing? Good to see you too, Jim. So 18, or I'm sorry, not 18, 1/8 notes, but we could turn that into a dotted eighth note, which to me adds a lot more character to it. One of the big things with deep house that I've noticed is you either want the bass to be real dry or go the other direction. You want to bathe it in reverb and effects, and then what you can do is control that with a sidechain. So going into tempong here, 30% feels like a lot of delay, but I kind of like it there. It's adding a lot of stereo content. It's all rhythmic. It's all giving that we could dampen it a bit. By dampening it, we can also increase the dry wet amount a bit. Super cool sounds. Now we've got, you know, some more stuff we could do. One is, even though I just checked real quick, even though we're only using the dry wet here, this filter out is still controlling the volume for the whole thing, right? So we can use another sequencer. And this time what we want to do is sort of create this sort of shape. And let's see here. And we're going to make sure that it's, unipolar. And we're going to bring it, we're going to kind of give it this sort of shape like this, and maybe even bring the steps down to, what would it be, 4? Yeah, here we are. And this is about right. Wait a second. Actually, I might need to change the shape a bit. There we go. I need something a little bit more. See if I can, I want to get basically a sidechain type shape to it, but I might have to use, what is it going to be? Something like, I want to have that one all the way up, but I see it's going back down there towards the end. So that's a sort of the trick to it, isn't it? That's all the way up. So how do we do this so that we get like a nice linear shape? Wish I had one of the Polyverse guys here. I bet they could probably help me real quick. Get that all the way up so that this goes up and stays up there. Let's see if I can do it. I don't know if I'll be able to. We could... Wait. Let's see. I might be able to do this. What about if I just bring the steps down to 1? Yeah. And bring it up like that. And then just change the shape. Okay. Let's see. Come on, Christ in heaven. We need 2 steps? Is that the trick? Okay, wait. It's giving. I just want a fucking sawtooth. Okay, so bring that to one step and then bring it up and then change the shape to all the way down. No. There's got to be a way to... I've seen it be done. I don't know what I'm doing wrong as far as getting it to be something I could use, though. Let's see if it's let's just see if it's in one of the patterns. Because that's the thing, like, you just pull up a pattern often and get exactly what you want. Let's see. This is killing me. Oh, we could use the ADSR. Or we could do... There's got to be a way to do this easily. We could, of course... just use the envelope follower. That's probably the easiest way to do it now that I think about it. We're going to use the sidechain left and right. I don't know why I didn't think of doing this first. So the easiest way to do this is just to route the kick drum I have here. And just route that to the DWDK bass here. But we're going to route it to channels 3 and 4. I don't know how well you can see that over on the stream. Probably might be control and click. That might have been it too. But now we've already moved on to it. Just a different way to get this sort of sound. So I'm going to use the envelope follower on the filter out and then increase that all the way up. And I'm going to use it not as threshold follow, but anytime it goes over the thing here, we're going to increase the attack. Let's see what happens. That fixed it pretty easy. So that's a pretty good way to do it. Just use the envelope follower and you know, we've got a pretty good kick drum or a bassline kick combo here. And to me, that's like kind of the hallmark of some good deep houses. You want that bass line to feel nice and dark down there. If anything, we can maybe tune the bread and butter filter a little lower. So it's really cool, really easy way to create that sort of sound. And so now what I want to do is I'm going to just initialize Filterverse here. There we go, on a new layer. We'll call this one growl. So we'll sort of create more of that growl type sound from earlier. Unison 1. Let's turn the this off here so you guys can see what I'm doing here. We could add some glide. Let's increase the sustain, actually. That way we get just like a really brutal. Or we could increase the decay quite a bit and have it kind of... And let's bring the effects back into the chorusy sort of range. Just a massive, massive sound to get out of a synth. A little more key track. Yeah, very cool. So I'm going to just loop our little bass line that we made, our silly little bass line. And then we'll do a couple of passes here. And I'm just doing some real basic Phrygian stuff. If you're not familiar with modes when it comes to music theory, I know it's not everybody's favorite topic. So what I'm doing is, instead of playing in G minor, I'm playing in G Phrygian, which just means taking that minor, that second, and making it minor. So it's dropping one note, and that gives it that darker sort of sound. So if you want that spookier side of that, DK Spangler, I'm not familiar with it. This is an 8-voice synth, I believe. So we're going to record something in. There we go. So we've got, I know that was kind of sparse, but the reason is we're going to really make this sound with the effects and filter verse. So we're going to just loop that. Yeah, there we go. Now, we're going to use filter verse's incredible reverb, which is space. We're going to kick that on, and we're going to bring the room size down. I can turn that off. We don't need to use the presets. The presets are great too, by the way. It's just kind of fun to go through with that. Oh, DK Spangler is in the chat. Yo, can I get a shout outs to DK Spangler? Charles Maines, how's it going, my friend? Good to see you. So by increasing the resonance, we're increasing the size. We'll also just bring the diffusion all the way up, and we're bringing the detune to 50. This is sort of my default sort of start of a sound. We need more space, so let's bring it up to 6. I see what I did wrong here. Let's do this. Yeah, this is the hotness here. We need even more space. That's crazy. That's a little huge. Let's try 7. Yes, Tom. So the reason you're going to... Polyphony is tough for any synth that's analog. And if I didn't say this at the top, but the filters in this synth are analog and the oscillators are digital. I figured most people are familiar with the synth, but it's probably worth covering it because I know a synth stream like this is going to bring some new people in. And that's the great thing about this synth is the analog filters, the KJM 2069s. They sound like SSMs. It's my favorite filter Korg ever made. And honestly, I should have said this way at the beginning, but the reason I picked the synth out of all of my library of vintage synthesizers is that it's the deepest sounding filter. Like the bass you can get out of this is so crazy. VA, virtual analog, you should not have too many polyphony issues. I mean, some modern synths like Wave State have a lot of processing going on. It's, but they got a lot of polyphony too. And then there's just the early VA stuff. They just couldn't afford it, right? So anyways, going back to listening to this. The awesome sound, isn't it? We're going to increase the pre-delay to 250. Which is going to push it back. So as we bring in the dry wet, we can bring it down now. We're going to get more of that signal. Oh, one thing I need to do is preserve PDC. There we go. Now, what we need is some attitude on this sound. It's sounding real vanilla right now. So we could do that a few different ways. We could use like the peaking filter, for instance, and we could add some movement in. Listen to that growl in there. Right? Oh, I should definitely have the filter verse up here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm adding like a 300 push. Right? And then, of course, it's going to be more interesting if I move this around a little bit. So let's pull up, open a sequencer, and then we'll pick a new pattern, and we'll just see how one of these sounds. It's always fun to see what we get. So many great patterns in here. Very small amount is good. Yeah. And it's going kind of fast, so I'm going to slow that rate down. And then really the secret's going to be just pushing the drive, right? There we go. Christ almighty, here she is. She's come to play. Now, if we want to thin that out, we could move it more into bandpass territory, right? Actually kind of sounds good. I don't think we needed all that low end. Little too much. We can check out the high pass filter too. It's good. Monty, welcome to the stream. How's it going? What do you guys think? High pass filter? Or more like band pass filter? I think I like just the darkness of that. Right? And if we want to make that even bigger, why don't we, let's add that tempong in. You guys already know, so we're going to bring it up to like 30, dampen it. We're going to use like a real slow delay on this one. Have they already added new filters, Erez? How's it going, by the way? currently adding. So I'm going to bring the volume down. And then same thing I did before. I'm just going to take the kick drum here. I'm actually going to use the thinner kick drum. It's probably a better source to use for a trigger. I'm going to send this to DK. What is it? The growl here. On channels 3 and 4. So simple sidechain, real easy. So going back into Filterverse here, we can just add in an envelope follower. Somewhere around, it was like around 400 and with a short release. And then sidechain, and then just bring it real close to the top here. We'll see what we get. And then, of course, we have to modulate it, right? Oh, yeah. Let's see if I move it more towards bandpass, what we get. God, I love how terrifying that sound is. High pass, let's see. It's just good with like that high end, right? I'm going to slow it down a little bit. If you go too slow, it's interesting, you lose it. Little too much reverb, just a bit. I mean, I love it being huge, but I just love how sick that sound is. Plumpy, how's it going? Now, of course, if I remove... All right. Monty, I got you. Yeah, yes, sir. Bring it down to like 20. Just because it sounds so good, and then we can increase the volume. We've sort of bordered into tech house a bit, but all you got to do is add a little melodic stuff in there, and we'll be good to go. Let's try the band reject real quick for fun. Oh, we can modulate this, by the way. Why don't we fucking do that? That sounds like a great idea. So we're gonna modulate the type. We're just gonna slow that real low. Let's see if I'm going slow enough. It's kind of fun. I guess I have to go even slower if I want to like truly experience each of the different filter flavors. That's fun. We can do a little of that. I'm gonna make it just slightly go between high pass, peaking, and band pass here. You know, that way we're getting some real vibe into the song, right? So that's another cool sound. So again, just the synths here. Oh, yeah. Oh, That's nice and filthy. Okay, so let's make a new sound. So I'm going to just duplicate this track, kick that back on. We're going to get rid of the word growl. And we're going to initialize filterverse again. So let's do, what do we think? What do we need next? I think we need some more, you know, cool textural stuff. Well, Sari, the baseline really kind of is 303-ish. I have this, what's this? Or what am I missing? Ah, here it is. Here it is. And in fact, what we could do is we could sequence this out. All right, let's see if I just bring this down. Or let me put it back to, let's see if I can get a much better pattern here. Let's see what we have here. All sorts of crazy cool stuff. I know there's a way to just get like a ramp, and that's because I've done it before. That's what I'm frustrated with myself with. It feels like doing this should be able to get me a ramp. You can change the phase of things. Man, this feels close. What does that do? Does that flip the mode or seek order? You can even modulate this stuff. That's the fun thing about Filterverse is that we have so many options. Oop, oop, triangle. Let's do it like this. So, and then we'll slow this real far down. Oop. Oh, that almost works. Like if you use 8 steps, it still drops right at the end. But that might be kind of cool. So I'm going to bring that down to like 4. Let's bring it down to 8. And then we'll modulate the filter here. That way it's like builds over time. Oh, it's going negative. I want to make that unipolar. That's what this button does. Oh, for sure, Jamie. I agree with that. And I am the world's biggest Juno Reactor fan, so I'm not surprised this is sort of bordering into Juno Reactor territory. Yes, a Hellraiser sample would be very appropriate right now. Yeah, we've had some cool ideas in this one so far. I think the one thing I want to do here is move this around, get rid of this phaser. Well, I don't know. I kind of want to just darken the sound a bit because it's starting to sound less analog. So what I could do is just load up one of my favorite EQ plugins, which is Slick EQ from Tokyo Dawn. They have this great tilt filter. So just bring in this sometimes can make stuff sound a lot more analog quickly. Too much. Just a little helps. Bring a little high end out. Boom. Yeah, something like that. And let me just see, make sure my starting point. Oh, I can see what part of the problem is here. It's just that my starting point's a little offset. So again, if I just go in here and I see where I'm at. All right, so we want to make that. There we go. How's it going, Kieran? Welcome to the stream, my friend. So yeah, we got that cool sound. Let's get some more now that we've caught back up. Let's get back into some of that sci-fi territory by increasing the resonance to the max, increasing the modulation generator. Using just noise now, right? Can get some really cool stuff here. Oh, arpeggiator riff sounds good too. We have a delay, so we could actually see what that sounds like. So you can get these sort of techno. Just a really cool... Let's just drop that in somewhere. What? Why am I hearing delay? Oh, that's why, because that's... Right? And what we actually could do is, in this case, I think we could just drop the exact same filterverse on here because we just want that same really big room house sound. So it's just like a really fun extra layer here. All I really want to do is kind of tune this first filter here a little bit more. Yeah, game on. Only thing I'm going to do is just add a little high pass filter just to clean it up. Audio Rate FM is giving us that sound. Really cool thing to have in there. So it is a little crazy. So what I'm going to do to smooth that out is my go-to compressor plugin right now is the UAD Distressor. So we'll just make sure that we keep that sound in check, and we'll just leave it at 6-1. So where was that sound? Right here. I want to make sure I grab that and pull maybe 10 out of it, smash the shit out of it. There we go. That's probably a good spot for it. Bring a little high end out too. Beautiful. Really fun sort of sound. So, for real this time, we're going to make a sound. It was just kind of nice to have another kind of crazy, noisy type thing. As soon as we did that earlier in the stream, I was like, I got to do something like that. It's too cool. So, going back to the DW, we need to bring in that melodic element. And Tracy, I appreciate you hanging out, even though this isn't your stuff. What kind of music do you like, actually? Because I'm always interested in doing these genre streams where I pick a synth and I pick a genre and see what's possible. Oh, it's a ghost. It's a little ghosty. Well, that's funny. So we've really lost it. So I'm just going to press the enter button on the scratch patch generator here, and that'll bring us back to a pretty basic patch. And what am I? Oh, I'm dual recording again. Let's just get rid of that. And then we're gonna call this one we're gonna call this the lead, because we need like a big badass synth lead. And I still think we're probably gonna do some of that sound. In fact, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take the filter verse from before, and I'm gonna just disable the Swiss Army knife in the front, so we still have the space and the tempong. So that way we can hear what it sounds like. So what we need to do is create, just like a really big sound. Do you have fractalizer, I think is what you're talking about. Oh, wait. Did I completely fuck that up? I think I did. What did I do with that? I put it on the insert? Oh, wow. I put it on the input lead effects chain. We'll start with this, and we can always bring over that stuff. Let's create this. And yes, I do have the fractalizer. Am I missing something? Why I'm not hearing anything there? Really cool filters that are in here that we aren't even really talking about. I don't talk about them enough, but I like just using Filterverse whenever I want to get going with it. I mean, this definitely has some elements of some industrial in there, Tracy, but I will definitely do some stuff in the future. So, on more dark genres, because that's what I like. So first thing, I always talk about looking at the amp envelope and figuring that out first. Everybody goes to the filter, the cutoff knob. It's usually the biggest knob on the synth. In this case, it's all uniform, and then the envelope. And they kind of forget about the amp envelope. And I think this is where the magic happens. So this time, I'm going to bring the sustain down quite a bit. And I'm going to pick a kind of medium decay. Like that. Medium release, and then bring the sustain up a bit. Something like that. Something that rings, but also kind of cuts and gets out of the way, because sometimes too much is too much. Sometimes too much is not enough. Let's bring in the chorus. We can take this really far too, by the way, if we have the level and the mod rate and the depth all the way up. Tonight's the DW-8000 from 1985. You can get one of these pieces of history for $300. Links in the description. But obviously we don't need to take the mod depth that far. Somewhere around there seems to be pretty good. If we put it in the unison mode now. Increase glide. Get that kind of sound. So, decay, release, not a lot of sustain. Octaves down. You know, for me, there's something about the unison mode in this synth that is very characterful. Because it's digital, it's not like firing 6 VCOs, right? So it has a very cyberpunk sound to it that's not exactly what I'm looking for with this song. So we'll use Filterverse to give us that thickness. Yeah, the portamento has a character to it as well. So let's see what kind of thing we might want to do. So I'm going to remove Filterverse and drop in one of the other Filterverses over here that's got the space on it and everything. And we'll turn the Swiss Army off and see what... Or maybe we'll just turn it so far up and just modulate nothing. And that way we're sounding fine. Sometimes you just need 3 fucking DSS1. Sometimes that's just what you need. Why would you question that, Sari? So what we're gonna do is, let's see here. What's interesting is the way I set up the sidechain. You actually need the kick for it to like go up in volume. Fascinating. I didn't anticipate that, but as long as you got the kick from there, you're fine. Yeah, I think that'll work. Something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and record this in. See what we get. I'm gonna do that again. I think I want to play a little bit more, but not too much. I still want to keep it sparse and let the reverb and the delay, you know, make the sex happen. Take. Let's jump back into the DAW so you guys can see what I'm up to. Okay, so we've got this little take right here. And so what I'm going to do now, we've kind of got 2 separate sort of riffs going on. So I'm going to just bring everything I got here, and we're going to just copy all of everything over one time. Make sure I grabbed all the things. I think I grabbed everything. Make sure the envelope points are moving. Yeah, we'll just copy this over. So now what I've got is just more song, right? And I'm going to only bring in the second layer on the second pass and maybe mute some of the stuff here. I like this growl quite a bit. I might just leave that in the whole time. I think that's part of the flavor of this song. It does step on it a little bit, but I've got a trick here. So when we were recording this earlier, we recorded the bass. And we're recording, you know, down here, that G note. And then, so I think if I just pitch this down 4 notes, and then I bring this up, let's see here. Bring this down 2 notes, and then it's just like this last little bit here. Fascinating. It's just this last, what is this? 2 quarter notes. We're going to bring that back down. Let's see how this sounds, just pitch shifting it raw. No fucking finesse whatsoever. I really hate doing this type of thing, but because I didn't save the bass sound, you know, because I didn't think I would need it, we're going to end up with this sort of thing. So I'm glad you like it, Retro. Hey, it's Brad from Isla. How's it going, my friend? Good to see you. You know, just messing around with some vintage synths. So now that we've got that, let's see how this bass line sounds. Let's see if we can force it into key. Ah, ha, 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 ha. That's not gonna work because I was playing a little riffy thing. Okay, no worries. No fucking worries. Let's just go back to the bass line and let's just make a nice little brass sound real quick over here. Let's see. So what did this sound like without any effects? It sounded like... Okay, so I can make something like that, right? I'm good at synths. We just need a fast filter, bring the envelope down. Oh, that was fast. That was really... That's close, isn't it? And I need to bring this up an octave, right? Something like... We've got a broken CZ1 lying in the graveyard behind me. It's just off camera here. It's the only broken synth I've got. And it's missing... my tech told me that it needs the... it's in good condition, just the chips are fucked. So he's like, yeah, you're going to have to cannibalize one. Okay, so we also had... Did that have an echo on? An echo? It did. Okay, so that just means going back over here, increasing time, feedback, mod depth, and everything off. Just see how close this is. Little slower time. Little faster time. Actually, more reverb and little less. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so now I think I should be able to get away with just raw dogging this in. Let's do something like this. I don't know. All right, so that, I mean, that was pretty rough, but we'll see how it sounds once we throw the effects on. We'll see if it's necessary to get any more precise than that, or if we're going to sound good. So I'm going to mute the lead, and then I just want to hear the bass right now. Jumping back over in the DAW so you can see what's up. Let's see. Brad says, no lies, the DW-8000 is actually my favorite go-to synth of all time. There's so much you can do with it. Between this or the Novation Supernova for me, but that's because I know them inside and out. I mean, I have a weird thing about loving some of what are considered like the budget vintage synths, and the DW-8000 is probably at the top of the list. It just sounds freaking great. And, you know, Poly 800 had the same filter, didn't sound as good. Poly 6 has a different filter, sounds really good too. Some of Korg's other synths, I've heard the Poly 61. I've never played that one. People say that one's awesome too. Synthpunk is a big fan of that. But also to the idea of using what Genki was saying, like a CZ1, it's a great idea to use something that's going to sound analog like a DW, because this sounds dark and warm. The filter's really dark and the oscillator's really dark, which a lot of the time sounds analog, right? That's what we mean by analog a lot of the time. Yeah, the key bed is easily low tier. One of the only things, but I haven't noticed it this stream. You know, I'm also not a great keyboard player, so that might be part of it. Yeah, there's nothing that sounds digital. The only thing that gives it away is like on the lowest notes, you can hear a little aliasing whine at the very top end, but I actually like that sound. I like that digital, that little bit of grit it has. It's got, you know, it's just a great thing. So anyways, let's hear how it sounds. Let's see if I got close. Little wonky note in there. I think it's okay for the sake of the stream, just so I don't go too late tonight. Let's go ahead and process this lead now. So I'm going to mute everything and just check out what we have going on with this lead and filter verse here. So let's decrease that amount of side chaining. Sounds great, just big. And that's kind of what you want, right? You want that really big melodic component. I think the only thing I might do is increase the reverb a bit. Also, one of my only things about this plugin when it comes to the reverb is with the dampness all the way off, it doesn't 100% sound amazing to my ears. So I think you kind of add a little bit of dampness in. Even if you want it to be bright, I'd almost like EQ that in later. It didn't bother me on the other sounds, but on this lead sound, it kind of does. Now to get this a little bit more analog sounding, let's bring in a ladder filter. Picking like a really warm frequency as a starting point, and then we're going to use a completely different sequencer. I don't want to use the same pattern, right? So let's go ahead and just, let's leave the steps at 16. But let's go with a completely different type of pattern, right? And just see what kind of sounds we can get. So this is giving almost like sample and hold, right? Very good. Let's just bring that in a bit. I don't think I need it to be that crazy, right? And because we have just added so much low end, let's just go ahead and throw slick EQ on and just add a little bit of shelf. You know, for me, when it comes to, discussing the personalities in the SynthTube sphere, I don't know what it is, but for instance, when Synthpunk roasted me on his channel, I wore that as like a badge of honor. I was like, finally, I made it. Because most of the time he's roasting like Ben Jordan and Venus Theory, like the really big players in the scene. And so even though he was like coming for me, I thought it was awesome. And I thought it was funny. And he also took it very easy on me. He could have been a lot more. Espencroft is always been an inspiration for this channel. I think I can't speak to what you were saying about him being rude or abrasive in the comments section. I've never looked at what he has to say in the comments section. So I really don't know, but I've always thought that he's got a sense of humor. And I think with his most recent video talking about like not buying synths, I mean, isn't it obvious? Like, I don't think he's means it fully seriously. Dude's got like a Jupiter 8 behind him. So it might be a little of practice what I preach, not what I do. But I think it's also just like he likes to be kind of a provocateur. And so I think there was a little wink in there in that one. And, you know, I'm a fan of Espen. I'm a fan of basically everybody. And that doesn't excuse any, and I'm not talking about Espen now, but just any creator being cruel to people. Like, I believe in punching up. So if I'm ever, I don't really attack anybody, but if I was going to attack somebody, I'd make sure that they had more subscribers than me, which isn't that hard. Yeah. Tokyo Dawn Records is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's a thing. But you know, I'm still going to be there watching Espen Craft's videos, and I think, you know, yeah, like Nordic humor, I don't think always, I think that's it exactly, Brad, is that the Nordic humor thing doesn't always translate. And it could be that. It could be that he's not being Nordically funny and it's just me reading into it too much, but I'm not that worried about it. So anyways, let's bring in all of the elements and see what we have here. That growl is so good. Little bit, Sari. Minimo, welcome. Well, the drop would be building up to this, like at the beginning, you know, like it would probably look something more like this, where we have some sort of thing going, like some sort of this action, right? There's the fucking drop, right? Something like that. Yeah, I understand. I guess I could crank the snare drums, right? That's a way to make it build. Look, the filter FM thing is pretty cool. I'm a Reaper diehard. I live, breathe, and die. I live to reap. As John would say, are you reaping, son? I definitely don't think anybody's going to think you're dumb. There we go. All right, so we made some music tonight. It was fun. I think that's a good place to call it for tonight, just because I could just spend hours and hours. That final sound, the final lead, I think it would take a little bit more work, maybe a couple more takes to massage it in. But I think it was a good little experiment into the world of deep house. And hopefully I convinced someone somewhere to buy a DW-8000. I seriously think that it's one of the most underrated synthesizers of all time. And the fact that you can buy it for $300 with shipping on Reverb right now, like, that's insane to me. Spoiler alert, I paid more than double that for my synth back in the day when synths weren't that expensive. I would love to do a stream with you sometime, Brad. That would be incredible. Anytime you want, I'm all yours. Yes, I will definitely download the latest Filterverse. I've got some new content I'm shooting for them, hopefully next week. It's been crazy busy. I appreciate it, Mark. It was a lot of fun. So I'm going to finish the stream out. We're not that far apart. So we'll finish the stream out by just letting the song play out. And I just want to say thank you again to everybody who makes these Wednesday night streams so much fun. It's literally the highlight of my week every week. And with that, guys, continue to be excellent, and I will see you in the next video.
Thank you.